Picture this. A 72-year-old man stepping onto a film set in 2024. Cameras rolling, ready to throw punches and do stunts that would make actors half his age think twice. That man is Sammo Hung. And if you're wondering who that is, you've just proven exactly why this story needs to be told. While Jackie Chan became a household name across every continent, while Bruce Lee achieved mythical status, Sammo Hung quietly shaped the entire landscape of action movies without ever getting the recognition he deserved. Here's the part that'll blow your mind. Sammo wasn't just Jackie's colleague or his friend. He was Jackie's big brother, his mentor, the man who literally taught him how to become a star. And yet, most people couldn't pick Sammo out of a lineup if their life depended on it. The year was 1961 when a 9-year-old boy named Hung Cambo walked through the doors of the China Drama Academy in Hong Kong. His grandparents had heard about this Peking Opera School from friends, a place where children learned acrobatics, martial arts, and performance skills. That would set them up for life in the entertainment industry. What they didn't mention was the brutal reality waiting inside those walls. The school was run by Master Yu Jim-Yuan, a man who believed in exactly 3 things: discipline, hard work, and order. Discipline came swiftly and painfully measured in strokes of a cane across young backs. Hard work meant practicing until your body screamed for mercy. And if you were caught stealing even a few minutes of rest, that meant an extra hour of practice. Order was enforced through a strict hierarchy where senior students commanded juniors and Master Yu's word was absolute law. Disobey and you'd face the cane or a hard-swung fist from your fellow students. Young Hung became Yuan Lung at the academy, adopting his master's family name as was customary. Despite the harsh conditions, something remarkable happened. Hung didn't just survive this brutal environment. He thrived in it. He became the eldest and most skilled member of the 7 Little Fortunes, a performance group showcasing the Academy's best talent. Under his leadership, these 7 kids would travel to theaters across Hong Kong and even perform for Western audiences. Their acrobatic skills and martial arts prowess, leaving crowds speechless. Among his younger brothers in the group was a kid named Yuan Lo, someone who would later change his name to something the world would recognize: Jackie Chan. Even back then, there was a hierarchy, and Sammo sat at the top. As the eldest, he took care of his younger brothers in ways that went beyond just teaching them moves. When Sammo started getting paid for stunt work at just 14 years old, he didn't pocket all the money. Instead, he gave his opera school brothers pocket money from his own earnings, endearing himself to these kids who had nothing. Then came the injury that changed everything. Just before leaving the academy at 16, Sammo suffered a severe injury that left him bedridden for an extended period. Unable to train, unable to move much at all, his weight ballooned. When he finally recovered and found work as a stuntman in the film industry, people started calling him Sammo after a popular Chinese cartoon character, whose name meant 3 hairs. It was meant as a joke, a nickname for the chubby kid trying to make it in an industry that valued looks as much as skill. That nickname stuck, and Sammo Hung was born. But here's what nobody expected. This fat kid could move like lightning, flip through the air with impossible grace, and fight with a ferocity that left audiences stunned. His weight should have been a liability. Instead, it became part of what made him unforgettable to those who actually saw him work. The year 1973 should have changed everything. Sammo got cast in what would become one of the most iconic martial arts films ever made, Enter the Dragon, starring Bruce Lee. Not just cast as an extra or background fighter, but as Bruce Lee's opponent in the film's opening sequence. If you've seen the movie, you know the scene. A young fighter faces off against Bruce Lee in a sparring match that demonstrates Lee's philosophy and skill. That fighter was Sammo Hung. And what most people don't know is that this was the very last fight scene Bruce Lee would ever film before his tragic death. This should have been Sammo's launchpad to international stardom, his moment to step into the spotlight and show the world what he could do. Instead, decades later, that's still how Western audiences know him. That guy who fought Bruce Lee in Enter the Dragon. Nothing more, nothing less. They don't know his name, don't know his story, don't know that he'd go on to become one of the most influential figures in action movie history. The cruel irony is almost poetic. By the late 1970s, Hong Kong cinema was struggling. Bruce Lee had died, leaving a massive void in martial arts films. Jackie Chan, Sammo's younger brother from the opera school, was floundering, unable to find his footing in an industry that kept trying to make him the next Bruce Lee. His movies weren't connecting with audiences, and his career looked like it might fizzle out before it ever really began. Then Sammo stepped in and everything changed. In 1983, Sammo directed Project A, a pirate-themed action comedy starring himself, Jackie Chan, and their other opera brother, Yuan Biao. This wasn't just another kung fu movie. This was something different. Something that blended comedy with death-defying stunts and fight choreography that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Project A became a massive hit. And more importantly, it defined the template for Jackie Chan's entire career moving forward. Here's what the history books often gloss over. When Jackie directed himself, his films had visual inventiveness and great physical comedy, but the pacing would sag in the middle, and the focus on gags often overshadowed the action sequences. Sammo brought something different to the table. He brought harder-edged action scenes, a brisk sense of timing that kept audiences glued to their seats, polished compositions that looked cinematic rather than just functional, and an inspired use of locations that made every scene feel purposeful. Sammo then directed Wheels on Meals, another film featuring the three brothers, as they were known, set in Barcelona and culminating in what many critics at the time called the greatest martial arts fight ever committed to film. He followed that with Dragons Forever, the last collaboration featuring all three brothers, a film that stands as perhaps the peak of 1980s Hong Kong action cinema. During the filming of Project A, something significant happened. Both Sammo and Jackie had been called Daigo, meaning Big Brother, by people in the industry. But when they appeared together, it became clear who truly held seniority. Sammo, being the eldest of the Kung Fu brothers and the first to make a mark on the industry, was given a new nickname Daigo, which translates to Big Brother or Biggest Big Brother. Even Jackie Chan, who would become an international superstar dwarfing everyone else's fame, acknowledged that Sammo was his elder, his teacher, his mentor. Jackie has said publicly that Sammo is far superior as a director and storyteller, especially when it comes to full-blooded kung fu films. The student surpassed the teacher in fame, but never in skill. The story gets even more remarkable when you realize how many careers Sammo launched with a simple decision to take a chance on someone. In 1985, a former beauty queen named Michelle Yeoh, who later became Michelle Yeoh, wanted to break into action films. This was an era when Hong Kong action movies were, in Yeoh's own words, very much a boy club. Women were always protected and defended in these films, relegated to roles that kept them safe rather than showcasing them as warriors. When Yeoh expressed interest in doing her own stunts and really fighting in an action movie, the producers thought she was mad or crazy or both. Sammo saw something different. He cast her in Yes, Madam, a film that introduced Yeoh and Cynthia Rothrock as a buddy cop team of women warriors. The movie revitalized the fighting female subgenre and launched Yeoh into stardom. Decades later, when Michelle Yeoh won an Oscar for Everything Everywhere All at Once, that victory traced its roots back to Sammo Hung taking a chance on her when no one else would. That wasn't an isolated incident. Sammo used his growing influence to assist his former China Drama Academy classmates, giving them roles in his films and helping them get their starts in the industry. Yuan Biao, Yuan Hua, Lam Ching-ing, Cynthia Rothrock, and countless others benefited from Sammo's generosity and belief in their potential. As the chief martial arts choreographer at Golden Harvest, Hong Kong's leading film studio, Sammo determined the fighting styles employed by some of the biggest stars of the era. He had a gift for taking actors who weren't trained as fighters and putting them through their paces so convincingly that even the most savvy Hong Kong audiences were fooled. More than just helping individuals, Sammo shaped the entire industry's approach to action. He helped launch careers not through nepotism, but through genuine recognition of talent, often giving opportunities to people others had written off. While building careers for others, Sammo was simultaneously revolutionizing entire genres. In 1980, he directed and starred in Encounters of the Spooky Kind, a film that blended kung fu, comedy, and supernatural horror in ways no one had successfully done before. The film told the story of Bold Chung, Sammo's character, who gets tasked with spending the night in a haunted house only to become the victim of a plot involving witches, vampires, and juncture spirits. The genres flowed together perfectly, and the film's success kicked off an entire new category of supernatural kung fu horror comedies. This led to the Mr. Vampire series, classics like The Dead and the Deadly, and A Chinese Ghost Story. Sammo essentially created a genre that would dominate Hong Kong cinema throughout the 1980s and early 1990s. All from one film that mixed scares with laughs and incredible fight choreography. His innovations went beyond genre creation. Sammo, along with directors like Lau Kar-leung and Yuan Wu-ping, pioneered a style of action choreography that's still influential today. If you've watched the Ip Man series, if you've thrilled to the John Wick films, if you've been blown away by modern action sequences that blend practical stunts with precise choreography, you're watching techniques that trace directly back to Sammo's work. His 1978 film Warriors 2 and his 1981 masterpiece, The Prodigal Son, are considered by many to be the finest traditional kung fu films ever made. Featuring Wing Chun martial arts, displayed with such authenticity and skill that they've become textbooks for how to film martial arts properly. The Prodigal Son, in particular, holds a special place as Sammo's personal favorite among his directorial work. Then there's Eastern Condors from 1987. Essentially Hong Kong's answer to The Dirty Dozen. A ragtag group of convicts get sent on a suicide mission in Vietnam to destroy weapons before they fall into enemy hands. The film brought together an astonishing cast of Hong Kong martial arts talent, including Yuan Biao, Yuan Hua, Lam Ching-ying, fellow choreographers Yuan Wu-ping and Corey Yuan, kickboxing champion Billy Chow, and even Sammo's wife Joyce Cadenzi. The action sequences were brutal, realistic, and heavily influenced later Hollywood blockbusters. Criterion Collection recently gave it a 4K release, acknowledging its status as a classic that deserves preservation and recognition. So, with all this success, all these innovations, all these contributions to cinema, why isn't Sammo Hung a household name? Why don't people recognize him on the street the way they do Jackie Chan or Bruce Lee? The answer, according to general wisdom, comes down to something superficial and frustrating: his weight. Industry observers have long pointed to Sammo's plump physique as the reason he failed to achieve stardom outside Asia. In an era when action stars were expected to look like bodybuilders or lean fighters, Sammo's large frame apparently made him unmarketable to Western audiences. But here's what that explanation conveniently ignores. Sammo's weight never stopped him from being a phenomenally agile and formidable martial artist. This man could perform flips, spins, and acrobatic moves that left trained athletes speechless. His size made his abilities even more impressive, not less. The problem wasn't his talent or his appearance. The problem was an industry and audience that couldn't see past surface-level expectations. The timeline of Sammo's career reveals an even crueler irony. After Jackie Chan's breakthrough with Drunken Master in 1978, Sammo was scheduled to make The Magnificent Butcher in 1979. Featuring the same beggar-so character as Jackie's elder in the industry, Sammo's films were expected to surpass Jackie's in popularity. Everything seemed set up for Sammo to achieve the same level of success or greater. Then tragedy struck during filming. The lead actor, Kwon Tak-hing, died of a heart attack. He was replaced, but the absence of this beloved actor may have contributed to disappointing ticket sales. The film that should have elevated Sammo to Jackie's level instead underperformed, and the momentum shifted. Throughout the 1980s, Sammo continued directing, acting, and producing, creating some of his absolute best work. Eastern Condors, The Millionaire's Express, and Pedicab Driver all came from this period, films that showcased his talents at their peak. Yet, this era coincided with his commercial decline. Box office disappointments stacked up despite critical acclaim. In 1991, Sammo left Golden Harvest after a dispute with studio head Raymond Chow over the premature withdrawal of one of Sammo's productions from theaters. He continued making films through his own company, but he never regained the consistent commercial success of his earlier years. In 1998, American television offered a potential breakthrough. CBS scheduled Martial Law, an hour-long comedy drama built around Sammo for Saturday nights. The show found an audience and ran for 2 seasons, giving Sammo his first real American recognition. For a brief moment, it seemed like Western audiences might finally discover what Hong Kong had known for decades. But the show ended and Sammo returned to working primarily in Asian markets. His American moment having come and gone without translating into lasting fame. Fast forward to 2024 and 2025. And Sammo Hung is still working at age 73. He appeared in Twilight of the Warriors, Walled In, an action crime thriller that broke box office records in Hong Kong, grossing over 5 million Hong Kong dollars on its opening day alone. The film topped box office charts and showcased that even in his 70s, Sammo could still deliver compelling performances. He's given masterclasses in Singapore and Tokyo, where filmmakers young and old attend his talks in hushed reverence, treating him like royalty. At the Tokyo International Film Festival in 2024, Backstage crew described meeting two young filmmakers who referred to Sammo in adoring, hushed tones, calling him their personal idol. This is a man who attracts respect from all walks of the industry. Someone whose influence spans generations. Yet, when Sammo was asked about what would make him happy at this stage of his career, his answer was heartbreaking. He's won Lifetime Achievement Awards, acting awards, and recognition for stunt and action choreography. But he's never won or even been nominated for Best Director. His own words, "If I do 10 more films, I'll be happy if even one nabs a Best Director prize or even a nomination for it." Recent years have also brought health concerns. In 2009, during the filming of Ip Man 2, Sammo became ill and had to undergo heart surgery. He cited a combination of his weight, love of cigars, long filming hours, irregular meals, and fatigue as the cause. Photos from recent years often show him in a wheelchair or using a cane, his mobility limited by age and health issues. Yet, he continues working, continues sharing his knowledge, continues making films. In June 2025, he made his official debut on Chinese social media platform Douyin, sharing a video reflecting on 60 years in the industry with the message, "Failure is not frightening. It's the fear of failure that's truly daunting. Failure is just a temporary setback. Perseverance is the eternal attitude." Even now, even after decades of not receiving the recognition he deserves, Sammo refuses to stop creating. The legacy Sammo built didn't go to waste. Even if his name isn't widely known, Hollywood has been, in Sammo's own words, following Hong Kong action films and Hong Kong film styles for decades. Every time you watch a modern action sequence with intricate choreography, practical stunts, and a blend of humor and intensity, you're seeing techniques Sammo helped pioneer. The Matrix, John Wick, the Bourne series, and countless others all trace their DNA back to innovations Sammo introduced or perfected. Jackie Chan's entire international career. The template that made him a global superstar was built on foundations Sammo laid with films like Project A and Wheels on Meals. Michelle Yeoh's Oscar-winning performance in Everything Everywhere All at Once represented the culmination of a career that started because Sammo saw her potential in 1985. Donnie Yen's Ip Man franchise, which introduced Wing Chun and the story of Bruce Lee's master to global audiences, featured Sammo as both action choreographer and co-star. His fight against Yen being one of the series' highlights. The entire Hong Kong New Wave movement that redefined action cinema in the 1980s counted Sammo as one of its pivotal figures, someone who helped reinvent the martial arts genre and popularized it to larger international audiences. Yet, walk up to random people on the street anywhere in the Western world and ask them to name martial arts movie stars. They'll say Bruce Lee without hesitation. They'll probably mention Jackie Chan. Some might remember Jet Li or maybe Chuck Norris. How many would say Sammo Hung? How many would even recognize the name? The architect who designed the blueprint for modern action cinema, who trained the superstars, who created entire genres, who launched legendary careers, remains largely unknown outside of die-hard film fans and industry insiders. At 73, Sammo continues making films, continues teaching, continues hoping that maybe one day he'll get that Best Director nomination he's never received. He recently expressed concern about the future of martial arts film, noting that even if he teaches the newer generation everything he knows, there have to be opportunities for them. Fewer kung fu films are being made now, meaning less chance for young talents to break through. He worries about passing on his knowledge when there may not be an industry left to receive it. The greatest injustice in action cinema isn't that a talented person got overlooked. It's that the man who made the entire modern action industry possible, who shaped its stars, created its innovations, and defined its aesthetic, never got to experience the fame and recognition that his students enjoyed. Jackie Chan became the face of a movement Sammo built. Bruce Lee got mythologized for pioneering a style that Sammo helped perfect and propagate. Western action directors borrowed freely from techniques Sammo invented, often without acknowledging where those ideas originated. Hollywood profits from a playbook Sammo wrote, but his name doesn't appear in the credits. The world knows the empire. It doesn't know the architect who built it. Maybe that's about to change. With streaming services making Hong Kong cinema more accessible, with film scholars increasingly recognizing Sammo's contributions, with social media allowing Asian cinema fans to share their enthusiasm globally, there's hope that this legendary figure might finally receive broader recognition. Maybe younger audiences discovering action films will stumble across Sammo's work and realize what they've been missing. Maybe the industry will finally acknowledge that you can't tell the story of action cinema without putting Sammo Hung at the center of that narrative. Sammo Hung didn't just work in martial arts films. He transformed them, elevated them, and used them as vehicles to launch careers.